I'm going to discuss the Elven Star of the moon. The Elven Star studies septiles, a seventh of a circle, not only individually but as a complete set, with the understanding that each particular point in the circle of septiles has a different meaning. Now, this generally was discussed by Dane Rudyard, and very few commentators have gone further than him in their understanding of the septile meaning. It's not studied in astrology because it's very difficult to locate. You need a computer. And even then, very few software programs offer septiles unless you're a bit clever. So we don't really get to see them. That doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means that we can't access it. Now, this itself describes their meaning very well indeed. There is an important aspect of life that we don't discuss because it's too difficult and we can't measure it easily. And that is exactly the world of the Elven Star. I've called it Elven Star, or I didn't call it that. I've chosen to use that particular name for the work I'm doing because it indicates the kind of quality that we're studying. It's this the quality of the elf. So is an elf real or not? Not to a scientist. They can't measure it. They can't photograph it. But to a certain type of person, yeah, it's real enough. It's a part of our mythology. Is mythology not real because it's imagined? This is a point for philosophers to discuss. For me, it's real. I know that there is in existence in my life an aspect of mystery and superstition even, and feeling and knowledge of the subtle realms. And I can feel it. It's not necessary for me to imagine it. My attention is called to a mysterious event by something. I'm not creating the imagination of it. I'm responding to a sensation of it. I know it's real. And I can't prove this to anyone that needs proof. And that comes into this as well. You have to develop faith to understand what this is all about and trust your intuition, trust your imagination. That realm exists. This is the realm that children live in constantly. They don't have to be taught about this realm. It's self-evident to them that it's all fantasy. All of this crazy world is what we make up. And we forget that because we're taught or brainwashed or bludgeoned into believing that the scientists are right, that you can measure everything. Well, you can't. You can't measure love. And if you think about which is more important to you, the love in your life or your electricity bill, it's the love in your life. That's the most important thing, and you can't measure it. So to say that the world of the Elven Star is unreal is just a limitation on the imagination of scientific materialists. Anyway, the Elven Star of the moon is rather more felt, perhaps, even than the Elven Star of the sun, because the moon can expect to feel more. And we're going to look at the 7 different points of the Elven Star and what they mean. On one level, we've already studied the meaning of these 7 sequential points by looking at the 7-word system. And we can go through the first point is no, that's the conjunction, as it were, the 0 degrees. This sort of next point is hello, and then we go thank you, goodbye, please, sorry, yes. So there you've got the 7 points of the star. Now the more subtle way of understanding this is found in pathworking. So you move differently between the points, and you can see a pathwork exists between the no point and the goodbye point. If you look at the star and you place it within a heptagon, you don't have to understand this, but if you do, that's how you get to the pathworking sort of determinations, no to goodbye, and then goodbye to yes, and so on, to create the star within the context of the heptagon. And I've got another explanation for the meanings of each of the points of the Elven Star, and I'll apply those explanations, and I'll give you the example of my own Elven Star points. And this will give you an idea of how to work out your own. You can find out your own Elven Star points by going to the Sabian Symbols Calculator page on my website. I'll link to that below. And underneath the normal output, there's another series of buttons that you can press to get the Elven Star calculations for each of the other planets. You can find your moon in there. So you can work out your moon points from this calculator very easily indeed. And I'll go through them now and discuss the meanings. So the first Elven Star point is the moon's placement in your horoscope. And so we're discussing simply the traditional given meanings of the moon. It's the atmosphere of your being. It's what you need. It's your unconscious nature. It's where you look for support. It's where you give support. What protects you and what you protect. And we have authentic emotional expression and rejection of what feels uncomfortable for you. Now for me, this is an old native woman selling beads, Taurus 27. And it's described as the wisdom of an elder, a calm wisdom that grows with age. And the soul is indifferent to circumstances and scenarios. So I would expect to find my peace and serenity developing more and more as I get older, and becoming less and less concerned with things and emotions and so on in the world. I'm more likely to turn within with this particular degree, and that's I think that's what's happening. That's what my friends are saying is happening to me, and I'm getting more like my granny than I ever was before. I have a memory of her as being that way. She was quite indifferent to social opinions of her. She just did it her way, very slowly, very quietly. And that image speaks to me much more nowadays than it ever has in my life. So I think I'm becoming more like this old Native American woman selling beads by the roadside. Now, the second Elven Star point is how to expand our emotional experience, learning how to feel and understanding our emotional nature by interacting with others. So we're developing the horizons of our emotional intelligence in some way. And in my case, that's Scorpio 1. That's the sightseeing bus, the tourists, and this is to do with curiosity. And this is to do with moving away from the past, motivated by curiosity for greater experience. And this was a big thing for me. It was very important during my childhood to have adventures, mini adventures. When I had my first bike, I would go to the furthest reaches of the little map that I had of my local suburb in Bristol, and I would always test myself. A bit older, I would hitchhike just for fun. I went to London, and that was a real adventure. And I used to put myself into situations where it was a little bit dangerous, because I was interested in the world, expanding my horizons of the world. And by doing that, I became able to take my moon in Taurus, calm sense of emotional stability into more troublesome situations and make it more robust. And so develop an ability to be calm even when all the people around me were not, or when the situation was not. So I think I did that by having these little adventures, having an adventurous spirit, the curiosity of Scorpio 1. Now the third point of the Elven Star, this is rather more to do with the heart. So we tend to have a loving experience in our early days, especially towards the mother, and that resonates with us for the rest of our lives, and we project that feeling onto the people around us, and we have certain people in our lives that represent familiarity and support and care, and that small circle might even be one person sometimes. That's the adult version. You know, it's not usually mother when you get to be an adult. It's a bunch of friends or your neighborhood support. So love, harmony, beauty, those are the words that I would discuss in this regard. And in my case, Aries 5 is a triangle with wings. This is the idea of aspiring to a higher reality, of reaching up and having an awareness of higher dimensions. So that doesn't really go hand in hand with this idea of being caught up in the support system of your neighborhood and closest friends. And indeed I was not. I haven't really done very much to create a support network, emotional support network in my life. I look for my spiritual development, my evolution of spiritual sense to give that to me. I take more support from, shall we say, my spirit guides and my faith in the spiritual aspect of life than I do in people, actually. So this Aries independent spirit has come out in that sense, that my emotional neediness isn't as obvious in me as it is for other people, perhaps, but I express that neediness as a need for spiritual evolution. I constantly look to become more aware of spiritual matters. Now, the fourth point on the Elven Star is perhaps something to do with weaning. You know, from the mother, we were babies and we became adults, and that was a shocking process, no doubt, at the time, not only for the mother's milk, but also for financial support and emotional support and those kind of things. Little by little, as we get older, we give up on them. And the way in which we do that is that which transforms our habits of feelings. And we have watershed realisations through which we find greater maturity. That's the idea for this one. And in my case, it's Virgo 10. This is the image of two heads that are looking out beyond the shadows. And it has to do with the mind's ability to grasp higher realities. This is not an emotional thing now, whereas we are talking about the moon. This is the mind's ability to grasp higher realities. And the way I interpret this one is that I do think, I philosophize, and I kind of try and work out what's actually going on, what's the meaning of life. And that thinking really informs my feelings. I allow myself to trust my thoughts. Certain training occurred in my childhood as an accountant where I would be able to interpret numbers thinkingly. It's a mental process in order to know whether my clients were safe in their businesses and whether I was safe in my financial situation and so on. I would turn my ideas into feelings. Not everybody does that. They feel and then they try and understand their feelings, but there is another way, and I actually do that other thing. I feel after I've worked it out on a mental level. So that's in keeping with Virgo 10, the two heads looking out beyond the shadows. Now, if we go a bit further, for me, I go to Aquarius 14, and this is the train entering the tunnel. And we're speaking about an approach to life where you come across an obstacle and you just cut through. A train is coming along, it comes across a mountain, it digs a hole to go through. So in the fifth point of the Elven Star, that which relates to please in the 7-word system, you're looking to find a way emotionally how to cut through. And if we think about such things as Alexander's approach to the Gordian knot, the Gordian knot was something that could not be untied, and whomever it was found to cut the knot or untie the knot would conquer India. That was the story. So the Gordian knot, an impossible task. And here we have an impossible mountain to get through, cut through. And that's what Alexander did. He just cut the knot and conquered in India. So I do that. If an emotional situation arises and I just can't understand it, I can't unpick it, I can't sort it out, I just cut through. Now, can't deal with it, I'm moving on. It's a bit of a ruthless side in a way, but it is clean and clear and necessary at times. Now, the 6th point of the Elven Star is to do with emotional maturity. How do we learn to accept criticism, accept disappointments and failures and those things that we really don't like without losing it emotionally? How do we grow up to do that? That's the importance of the 6th point of the Elven Star. It's quite profound. It indicates a high spiritual sense of self. And in my case, Cancer 18, a hen is scratching for her chicks. It's all about fulfilling a mature role within the community, feeding your chicks, taking responsibility for your duties. And I think this is a general understanding that we do have to take a mature and definitely reliable role in society, finally to evolve our moon out of being a baby self. Because we don't actually let go of all of our baby problems just because we're grown up. We have to do something in order to make that happen. So that's what the 6th point is for. Now the 7th point is some sense of being open to trust in the future, open to the release of control, enjoying adventure, having sufficient emotional composure to not control, to let go of control. And most of us have some control techniques in place, and for a long period of time that becomes, well, it's necessary. It doesn't become necessary, it is necessary because we're vulnerable. But there does come a time when we're no longer emotionally vulnerable, when we're mature, and then we can actually try things which we haven't tried before. We can go on adventures knowing that it'll be okay. And tiptoeing out of your own country to go on a foreign holiday, the first thing you do is go on a package holiday so that somebody looks after you all the way. And then eventually you might go backpacking and put yourself in harm's way. And the really adventurous backpackers go to countries that have not been settled and become the backpack trail. They go to real travel experiences and they put themselves in harm's way without any emotional disturbance, So this is the point of the 7th aspect of the Elven Star. And in my case, it's the Chinese laundry. Well, this is a symbol of solitude. There are people working in that laundry that don't really get recognized. They don't get to see the public. They hide away doing the work and they're not recognized. And some work is like that. You have to work in seclusion. And these people are examples of that. And in my case, for me to be alone and working alone is necessary. I can't do the work that I want to do in my life unless I seclude myself. And when I do, then there is this very certain feeling that I have of being able to tune in to the higher realms. I inquire of my inspiration. I contact the muse only when I'm alone. And I think that's an indication of what you can do with your moon. You can let go of the controlling sense of self and open up to feelings from other realms. and trust them, to learn to trust that you could never be taken advantage of because you're strong in yourself. And I think the 7th point of the Elven Star helps us learn how to do that. So here we have the whole thing. The 7 points of the star, we're talking about the emotional maturing process. First, the boundaries. Second, curiosity and expansion and development. The third, a sense of your appreciation of beauty and harmony and love. The fourth, some watershed experience, a growing up, a weaning of needs. The fifth, a sense of what you do when you project yourself into the world, how you feel when you do that, taking on a new role in society. And the sixth, what happens when that role is very mature and you're taking care of other people? How do you handle that level of maturity of caring for others? And the seventh, are you free of control? Can you open up to the highest inspired feelings that there can be? And this is the pattern of your Elven Star. Now, when you look at that and you see your own, what you will see is a theme within all 7. And if you can't see it, look deeper. There's a theme there. And it might be 2 or 3 repetitive images or whatever. And if you just find them and you build up this theme, which might be that you're very interested in spiritual development, or you're very good as a teacher, or you like to care for people, that there would be a repeated theme. And that's the emotional atmosphere of your being. If you can grasp all of the 7 at the same time and just somehow see those 7 facets of one theme, then the one theme, that's the depth of understanding of your moon. Not just your zodiac position of the moon. That's the starting point. But the septiles gives you a much more subtle sense of the mystery and the mystique, the esoteric side of your moon's meaning.